About 10 years ago, a mate of mine turned up at my house with a big bag of tofu and a bag of donuts and said, "Do you want some of these?"
I remember spending 20 pence on garlic one week and thinking, gosh, I've not spent money in weeks.
We actually found like a massive ruck, like a massive sack of bread, and it literally was still warm, it had just been cooked.
I'm well up for respecting the law when it's kind of there for a good reason, but you know, if it's stuff that people have thrown out and clearly don't want, I don't see that as theft.
Basically, I suppose that the idea is you get unwanted food that shops and wholesalers have chucked away, you go and take it out of their bin, take it home and eat it.
It's finding other people's waste and using it for something else.
Yeah, Freeganism, yeah. It's like just getting stuff for free when like you might have to like pay for something but something's going to waste, so you might as well use it.
It is actually a little bit like an addiction. Like we were driving back and we were like, every time I saw a bin I was like, stop, let's go have a look, let's go have a look. And then Judith was saying like you have to be really disciplined and be like, no, you're only allowed to look in like 3 different bins or something, because it is like, it's like gambling really, isn't it? You go in one and you're like, oh yes! You go to the other, you're like, oh, I lose.
Skipping is not just about food. Skipping, like, or Freeganism, like, bin diving, rummaging, whatever. Rummaging! Rummaging is not just about getting food out of bins. Rummaging is like a way of empowering yourself, a way of like getting to know your city, like in a cheekier way.
If people recognised the idea that once something's past its sell-by date it's not poisonous, it would make a difference to what they threw away personally, you know? So if people ate a yoghurt or something 3 days after its sell-by date, then felt fine, they might start to realise they didn't have to throw their food away.
But like, oh yeah, don't you get food poisoning or whatever, but like, I think this is just another thing about how people have just had the kind of natural skills taken away from them. Like obviously you can tell if something's off, like you can look at it, you can smell it, like you can, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I just think,
common sense.
Yeah, it's common sense. People have just lost their common sense and like, don't kind of, unless something's like a perfect shape and colour, they're like, oh, I wouldn't eat that. Virtually
everyone I know who goes skipping overwhelmingly does it for environmental reasons, anti-consumerism and all this kind of thing. And I think that's it's a slight misnomer to think that it has no consequences. And over the past few years I've seen it can be really damaging for people to get all their food out of bins. The problem is I'm mainly involved with sort of local food and food growing style work. That's where some of my paid work comes from. I'm involved in a lot of campaigning and practical activism along those lines. I'm involved with various community gardens and stuff. And when you can go to a bin and get 50 lettuces at will, or get a massive sack of onions whenever you want for free, it completely removes your incentive to develop the solutions that we need to overcome the unsustainable food crisis that we're in. The trouble is, this kind of thing is really unfashionable. You know, it's not very cool or trendy to say, hey, let's go and buy an organic veg box, whereas it's a bit cooler to sort of don your scarf over your face, go out at midnight and climb over the palisade fence to get to the bins. Yeah. You know, it's got that daring side to it. But if you're doing it because you care about building an alternative system, You know, that's the kind of thing you've got to do. But having said that, I'm definitely not saying skipping is always bad. And there are opportunities where the waste that goes on can be harnessed and used to promote a more sustainable approach to food.
You can all go out on missions together on your bicycles, like you all like here when there's like loads of one particular thing in a skip, and you all go out and get it, and then you'll all cook together and have like people's kitchen, and it's just wicked.
I'm Judith and this is my house.
Oh my god,
Yeah, this is a Volku. It's a German name for People's Kitchen, and it's where lots of people, you have a big community meal and lots of people come together and have some food.
I came across this film in a local cinema about freeganism in America, how it started off, and a bit weirdly, but I started going skipping with my friend's mum. She's really into it, and that was I think the first time I went, I got some ladies' stockings, so I couldn't stop. It was like, no, it was really good.
When I came to Leeds, and through a lot of people I met here who I talked to about it, and coming to nights like this, yeah, a lot of kind of through communal dinners and eating together and a sort of love of food.
I know they were friends that are like, oh, there's this bin which has got loads of like stuff in, go and have a look, and then, you know, you'll share it. Like, that's what's nice about it. People do it, but they're not greedy about it. Like, they'll leave some, and especially like for people, for us it's like not such a big deal, but for people that do this to live, like they can't afford food or whatever, it's a nice way to do it. And like, I think some people would see it and then they'll be like, oh yeah, and then be really greedy and take loads of things.
I think like there's a big problem with mainly like supermarket industry and things like that, which generate a lot of extra food and so a lot of waste because it's not used. And so like skipping, I think is quite kind of a good thing because it reuses food which is wasted otherwise. On the other hand, if we only rely on skipping, then we're not really we're still relying on supermarket. So, and because I think like supermarket is the problem, supermarket industry is why we have so much waste. So, I mean, I think it's important as well to subsidize other kind of industry, like I don't know, local farmers and things like that. So if you do only skipping, yeah, you don't subsidize supermarkets, but you're still relying on their food, and because you're not buying anything else.
Yeah. I think it's important though to remember that freeganism isn't sustainable. And, and so, though it can be something to be celebrated and it's really kind of an interesting alternative lifestyle, it's more important to celebrate allotments and kind of community agricultural schemes.
Yeah,
like
I mean, if we really were on a mission, we wouldn't take the food. We'd, I don't know, redistribute it.
I don't think that getting things out of bins is maybe the best way to counter, like, throwing stuff away in general. It doesn't really address it. It's not particularly mainstream, and I think people don't really know about it that much. So while it kind of might make it a tiny little bit better, it's kind of like a snub to the system. It doesn't really, you know, tackle that problem.
Yeah, I think we'd be a lot better if we were focusing our lifestyles on building the alternatives to wasteful and exploitative industrial capitalism. And that means that we would be growing all our own food or sourcing it locally, not necessarily growing it yourself, but finding local, organic, sustainable sources for your food. I used to wonder, why am I bothering growing all this food when I can just get it from the bin whenever? And I think the more we sever our links to the unsustainable system, the better we can build a sustainable alternative.
Everybody, see the snake.